last word on Today FM.
Text 53102.
And you're very welcome back to the programme. Hugh Linehan here from the Irish Times, sitting in for Matt Cooper on The Last Word this evening. Now, there's been a lot of debate, actually, over the last few weeks since the Teachers' Conference around the subject of education and religious education and denominational education in Ireland and the role of religion in education in Ireland. But what about the proposition that having religion as part of children's education is, by definition, a bad thing? That is a proposition which is held by my next guest, whose name is Aron, and he's a Texas State Director of American Atheists. He's also a video blogger and an activist, and he was speaking at a public meeting organised by Atheist Ireland last night about how, and I quote, religion harms education. Why so?
How does religion harm education? And well, the summary of that statement was after going through a list of affronts that religious instruction had done in Texas, the summary comment was that religion harms education every way that it possibly can. At the very best, when you give religious instruction, you are teaching people mythology, and right away it's downhill from there because you then assert it as fact, and it is dishonest to assert as fact that which is not evidently true, and that's what all religions do. So there's no point in teaching it. In fact, you can't teach something you don't know.
Now, your experience is very much rooted in the Texan experience, and with probably unlike Ireland, or certainly the Republic of Ireland, where there's an ongoing battle and a dispute over the teaching of certain theories, I would say, for want of a better word, like creationism, and giving it equal weight in the educational system to evolution and so on and so forth. Those are not issues which, to the best of my knowledge, are live issues in Ireland. There is no strong movement to say, to tell our children, for example, that the scientific theory of evolution is on a par with creationism. So, but I presume you would take it that your fights over creationism have led you to a much broader position on the role on the place of religion in schools entirely.
Well, even if they're not, promoting the creationist aspect, even if they're not doing the anti-vax situation or the climate change denial or any of the other anti-science things.
Is that just a religious thing, climate change denial?
Primarily, yes. Because, one of the excuses is that it doesn't matter what we do to the environment because Jesus is going to come back and burn everything anyway, so what difference does it make? All religion is about denying responsibility. You don't actually have to do anything to help anybody. You can wish upon a star that they get the help that they need. You don't have to actually atone for anything that you do wrong because you could just pretend that your imaginary friend has forgiven you. And when it comes to climate change, you have to say that the Bible says you're supposed to dominate and subdue, and damn it, that's what I'm going to do. And all of these resources were put here by God for me because I'm the reason that the universe exists. It was all created just for us. And so there's no future to look at because these are the end times and Jesus is going to come back any minute now. And I've been hearing that since I was a little boy. Dr.
Gareth Byrne is Head of Religious Education at the Mater Dei Institute and Coordinator of the Irish Centre for Religious Education. So therefore, I'm guessing you disagree.
That's right, Hugh. I'd disagree wholeheartedly with what Aron has just said. For me, religious education is a very positive value in education and in society. Having been a religion teacher myself and now training people to be religion teachers, I think that if we're going to look at the social, the religious, the spiritual, moral, ethical questions with young people, we need to do that. We need to give that space. We need to have a space that religious education provides for looking at the big questions. I take issue with Aron when he suggests the kind of religion that he's talking about. It's not the way I would recognise religion. You were kind of suggesting it maybe yourself there when you were asking the question. Religion, for example, seems to be a very literal understanding of the Bible there in what I heard a moment ago. So I think you have to study the Bible. You have to find out how the Bible was written, what kind of language is in the Bible, how can it help us to look at life today, how can it help me to reflect on what's significant for me, and I would also add in my relationships with others and how I can contribute to society. So religious education for me opens up all these questions. And when you go into the religious education classroom, as I do when my students are out on their training periods, I'm always fascinated by the way the young people engage with the religious education topics. In Ireland, a second level is my area of particular expertise. We try and open up the young person to all the questions from all the different angles, and we have a state syllabus which allows anybody, whether they belong to a particular religion or not, whatever their belief, whatever their worldview, they can participate in the religious education classroom. And the teacher tries to bring their experience, the experience of the young person, and deal with real questions for them.
But yet, in the Irish primary school system, the vast majority of schools, as we know, are run by Christian denominations. In fact, the vast majority of that vast majority are run by are under the patronage of the Catholic Church in one form or another, and those schools embody an ethos, a Catholic ethos, which they say, and that means that children, unless they choose to opt out, are educated in the Catholic religion. Is that appropriate in this day and age? And when you speak about ethical, moral, civic issues, can they only be taught through the frame of religion?
No, but religious education, I think, provides a particular space in which, if you didn't have that space in our school system, you'd have to wonder about how the holistic experience of the young person is being encouraged and that they're being encouraged to look at those kind of questions. So your question on the primary, well, first of all, just to say that many of the second level schools are also under a Catholic ethos, and they manage to do what I described. And I think this is a very important question also about the primary schools today. In the past, the Catholic primary school expected that all its pupils were Catholic, and it was very clear that it was helping those young people to grow into their faith, the faith of their parents. So many Catholic schools today have a great variety of different people in their classroom. They've opened their doors to the variety of people who now are in this country, and also to people who no longer participate in religious practice, even though they may still call themselves Catholic. So the schools are very aware of the variety of people who are there. And they would seek to encourage the people who are practicing Catholics to develop their faith. Now, so then the other people in the classroom, as you're suggesting, either if their parents don't wish them to be there to participate, they don't participate in the class.
So they do what? They go off to the library, or they go and kick a football around the yard?
Well, I think the most positive thing would be if they went off to the library and if they had some positive input. I think many schools will tell us that they don't have the resources for that. In fairness, I think to answer your question straight, that many schools are under pressure, so what they do is they leave the children at the back of the classroom and they give them some work to do.
Hardly satisfactory.
Hardly satisfactory, I agree with you wholeheartedly.
I want to come back to you, Aron. Actually, one of our listeners texted in from Cork, says, your atheist guest has as rabid an ideology as those he opposes. How do you respond to that?
How do I have an ideology? I don't have an ideology. It is dishonest to assert as fact that which is not evidently true. This is just a fact. That's not an ideology. When he's talking about giving real questions, granted, but he's not giving real answers. That's the problem. The real answers are the things that you know, that you can show to be correct. Within the Bible, all you have are statements that either cannot be shown to be correct or have been shown to be incorrect. And the reason that the Bible has been proven wrong in every testable claim that it ever made was because it was written by ignorant and bigoted savages who obviously had no idea what they were talking about. This is not a moral guide. If you want an actual objective morality, this is the biggest argument we get in Texas all the time. Where do you get your morality from if you don't get it from the Bible? Well, you damn sure don't get your morality from the Bible, because the Bible advocates all kinds of things that nobody's allowed to do in any country in this continent.
Indeed, and certainly the Old Testament in particular, that is true. But let me ask you then, where does art or creativity or a sense of the transcendent, which come through those kinds of forms of human activity, which we all recognise, be we atheists, non-believers or believers, where does that come from? Because it's not possible to pin that down in an entirely materialistic way, or is it?
Well, sure, and it's not possible to pin that on religion either. I mean, I'm
not suggesting it would be.
Yeah, well, you have some classical artwork that was, quite good in ancient times. And then you have the Christian influence. In my years in art school, showed that there was a huge decline in the quality of the artwork once you had a religious takeover of sense.
Do you believe that people like Aron, atheists and agnostics and people of other beliefs of that sort who don't agree with your position, do you believe that they have ethical and moral values that should be respected?
Of course, certainly. I'm here to talk about religious education, so what I'm suggesting is that we need to look at religious education and see how it can be of benefit to those who want to participate. If people don't want to participate, well then I think that's absolutely their prerogative. I also think that they may wish to participate, especially as I just described the second level system, where you're helping young people to work through their questions, find their own identity. Maybe even, we would want to acknowledge that they often are sort of trying to break away from tradition. So in religious education, you're giving them the space to actually deal with the issues that are coming up for them, the really important issues. And so we would be engaging in the Irish Centre for Religious Education with 17 people who are writing doctorates at the moment on religious education, and trying to deal with the variety of complex issues that we acknowledge are there for in our society and in our classrooms. And so you have people maybe working on religious education and special needs, religious education, and ethics and belief, a variety of different contexts and issues. And I think that we need to give that space to teachers and young people to support a conversation in society that allows for people to respect each other no matter what perspective they come from.
Mutual respect, Aron.
I don't have a problem respecting people. I don't respect beliefs that are not true. I do not respect things that are asserted to be true that are not true or that can't be shown to be true.
Do you respect the rights of people to hold those beliefs?
Absolutely, yes.
Personally?
You have a right to believe whatever you want, but when you say, I believe X, I would prefer that you say, I believe X because Y. That's fine. But when you don't say, I believe, when you just state X as a fact, then there's a problem. Because in the scientific realm, you can't say that something is true until you have supportive evidence overwhelming evidence to be qualified as proof, according to the legal document, the legal definition wherein proof is an overwhelming preponderance of evidence. You can't even say that something is probably true until you have evidence to indicate that probability. So when you say something is true that can't be shown to be true or can't be supported by anything, you've basically just made it up. And that's what religion is. It's entirely speculation. There's nothing that is verifiably correct about it. And there's a hell of a lot that is verifiably wrong. Not just in the belief, but also in the practice and the way that it's taught. He's talking about giving people space. I agree. They should be given space. They should not be taught to build their faith, because faith is the most dishonest position it is possible.
But finally, if I can ask you briefly, if you wouldn't mind, because the clock is ticking there. Yeah. I mean, you come from a country where there's a far stronger division between state and religion than there is here in Ireland, in terms, for example, of the public school system and the defence of the notion of that as being completely outside religious beliefs. So where's the problem there in the United States? Are people trying to annex that system?
Yes, we had a secular system because we had people that had been aware that people were trying to come into the country fleeing religious persecution, who immediately visited religious persecution against each other. I mean, the Puritans were torturing the Quakers over trivial differences. And then after that, you have a series of rural revivalism, so that everybody has to promote this religiosity. You can't get elected unless you proclaim a belief in God. So sadly, we cannot elect a leader until we have somebody who is firm in their convictions and secure in their beliefs, meaning that they will not change their mind when given evidence. This is not the means or the criteria for somebody you want to rule over. You want somebody who can admit when they're wrong and who can evaluate extenuating circumstances to make the right decision. Not somebody who's already made the decision before he's heard the evidence.
We shall leave it there. Thanks very much to Aron, Dr. Gareth Byrne, for joining us. We'll take